look, I think we've talked a lot over the last couple of weeks, that's for sure, and so I'm just happy to reiterate, many, many times, just my huge thanks to the organization for giving me this opportunity to come home and finish my career in such a cool situation that is the Sounders, and to be able to work with, the likes of, Todd Leiweke, Gary Wright, and now Peter, and just, the tremendous synergy between the Seahawks and the Sounders has truly been something remarkable for MLS, and something that I'm so extremely happy to have been a part of, and to hopefully still be a part of for a long time to come. Thanks.
Can you talk about kind of going out with today's news of the MLS Best 11?
I didn't really know that it had actually been announced, so I think it just kind of reiterates what I said at the beginning of the season, is the way I wanted to go out. I wanted to go out kind of on my terms, still being able to play at the level that I'm happy to play with, that you all are happy to have me play and used to having me play, and the fans and the coaching staff and my teammates. I just didn't want to go out where I wasn't able to perform at the level that I expect of myself and that everybody else expects of me. And so I'm proud that I was able to finish my last season at that level, and the rewards are, that's just kind of a bonus thing. I never played to try to get those kind of achievements. I always figured that, if the team was successful and I played to my ability, and somebody thought I did a good job, then great. So it's an honor, and thank you, but that's kind of the way I wanted to go out, was still being able to perform at the highest level.
What's maybe this last week or so been like? I'm sure every other year, for as long as you remember, thinking about the next season, preparing all that, and just having a week to...
Definitely. That is and I still don't think it's quite sunk in yet, because although I've had some interesting phone calls, at the same time it was more of a case too of taking a week or two to kind of get away from stuff before I start to figure out what I'm going to do next. And I know next week I'm sitting down with Adrian, and then I'm down to LA for all the MLS stuff, and then I'm sneaking off to South Dakota to go hunting for a week. So, and I'm sure after that it's going to be really that first couple weeks in December, before everybody takes off for Christmas, to really try to figure out what the new year's going to bring, and hopefully by that time I'll have a little bit better grasp of what that's going to be.
Can you describe what that last home game was like, just having 64,000 there who were essentially there to see you off?
Well, I think it was more than just me, but it was a huge responsibility that I felt going into the game. I had mentioned that it was one of the most nervous I had been in quite a while for a game. I'm nervous for every game, because I think if you have that pride in wanting to perform at a level, you're going to have that little bit of nervous energy, and if you don't, then I think you need to kind of rethink the way you're preparing for a game. But this one had a little bit extra. I looked at a few different games throughout my time here at Seattle, and that first game to New York, the very first game, I felt that responsibility that we've got 26,000 people at this game who've bought into a lot of hype, a lot of anticipation, a lot of people for many, many years were hoping and praying for that day to come, and I felt a responsibility, and I know a lot of the other guys did, to not let those people go home disappointed, and we didn't. And to be able to win 3-0 in that game was something that we'll all remember. And I felt kind of a similar feeling in that final game, where as the ticket people kept telling me, the ticket sales have gone up to this number, and then it kept going higher and higher and higher. I just didn't want those fans to go home and say, well, I came to watch Kasey play in his last game and he was terrible. Why the hell did I do that? And thank God he's retiring. So I felt that responsibility. And when we went 1-0 down, I was just saying, let's just keep going, and I was able to make a couple saves, and then for the team to be able to come through and get those couple goals at the end of the game, and be able to celebrate my last home game along with a great victory made all the difference in the world.
This one might get a 30-minute answer, but Don Garber said on the conference call today he wants MLS to be one of the top leagues in the world by 2022. In your opinion, kind of what are some of the things MLS needs to do to get there?
Well, you're not going to do it on a $2.6 million salary cap, so it doesn't really matter. I mean, you can talk all you want, and like I said, I have the utmost respect for what MLS has been able to do, especially early on. I think they set the standard. Had a little bit of, like any, I think, situation is going to have. You're going to have that little bit of kind of a weeding out period, and I think now it's in a huge ascendancy from what we've done over the last 3 years, from what Portland, what Vancouver are doing. I'm excited to see what Montreal is going to bring to the table, and then I think some of the other teams that you have to look at a team like what Kansas City has done, which is completely changed their club around, and we have a few more left to get there. I think that's a little bit optimistic from Don. You think of when I played for Millwall was founded in 1885. When Tottenham was, I think, 1890 something. Mönchengladbach was right around 1900. So to think of where we've gone as a league. When I started my professional career, there was no MLS. I had been a pro for 4 years before there even was a league in this country. So it's a tough task considering the competition we have in this country with other sports, for athletes, for airtime, for commercial time, on all that side of it. And I think I look back at what the NFL was when I was a kid. I look back at what basketball was, the NBA, and the huge strides that those leagues have made in a I'd like to say 30-year period, but that's starting to push 40-year period. But it's and you can't expect us to have a league for 15, 16 years and then add 10 more years to it and think you're going to rival the English Premier League or the Bundesliga or La Liga in Spain. It just doesn't quite work that way. I mean, we tried to do it in the 70s and 80s with the NASL and throw a bunch of money at it, and that didn't work out so well. So I think if we just continue to move on a nice steady growth, continue to claw into other market revenue shares from the other sports, there's no reason. We got a ton of people playing the sport. We have a ton of people watching the sport that we can't get our fair share of media time. But in 10, 12 years, to think that we can rival the English Premier League or the Bundesliga or La Liga or Serie A, I think is extremely optimistic.
When you look back now that this is over, coming in 3 years ago, what compared to your expectations of what you thought this would be, how did the last 3 years
I don't
play?
think nobody, I think, could have ever anticipated what this has become. And I think what it's done is also become a driving force for many other teams in MLS. And, for myself, it was a situation where I had to make a difficult decision. Do I stay in Europe and maybe play for a year or two, maybe move into a backup role at a big club or go to a different country, go back to Germany? A lot of different factors came into play for me. And then after talking with a bunch of people to try to make that decision, or actually the other decision was to simply retire 3 years ago, which was a very possible option as well. But the decision that a lot of people had talked to me about was coming home to be a part of something, to then parlay it into what I was going to do after I was done playing. And different friends who had come back from Europe had told me that it was really, really important that they felt to at least play for a couple years before that was made, if I wanted to work in the game when I was done playing. And I felt very I guess I would have felt very guilty, I think, if I had finished up, moved to my house in Idaho, skied and snowboarded for the last couple of years, played golf in the summer, and then looked around and said, all right, now I'm 41, 42. That was fun. Now what the hell am I going to do? And I've been out of the game for 3, 4 years, and I'm living in Idaho, in the mountains in Idaho, thinking, all right, how do I get back into this and to the level that I want to get to? So when the opportunity arose and it was on again, off again with Seattle, eventually we made it on again, and it was one of the best decisions I'd ever made. And so the big main reason for coming home and anticipating to come home was to move into something when I was done playing. But nobody, when I was my first meeting with Gary Wright at Coffee Zeit outside the stadium, and my first meeting with Todd Lewicki at the Seahawks old training facility, and that's what I think started to get me truly thinking that this organization had something special that was going to happen, and I truly was nervous. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I was extremely nervous. I'd heard so many horror stories from different friends of mine that had come home from big European teams and come back to MLS and were extremely disappointed. And I don't know how I could have handled that, to be honest, if I had been in one of those situations. And from those couple meetings, I realized that wasn't going to be the norm for this organization. I mean, of course, there's always going to be little growing pains and little things that we're all going to try to fix. But on that side of it, it was exactly what I was hoping for, and still had that little nervousness that it wasn't going to happen. But after the first game, then I knew it was the right choice, and I knew. But could I have anticipated? Could we have? Anybody thought in their wildest dreams that 2-3 years we'd be at 36,000 average or 38,000 average attendance this year, and the scope of this team throughout the Northwest? Nobody could have ever imagined that.
You said you've got some interesting phone calls in the last couple of weeks. Can you reveal any of those?
Well, I mean, a lot of it was just different things, from people wanting me to get involved in their camp situations to different commentary opportunities that people have kind of been talking to me at for a while. And I think it was kind of just trying to get get as many things processed to make the right decision. I mean, this last decision to come and play for Seattle was, turned out to be such a great decision that the thought of making the next one is a little bit scary, I think. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to whatever that next chapter is going to be. If it's going to be on the commentary side, if it's going to be coaching, if it's going to be whatever it's going to be. But I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to see what that's what is available and what feels right. And by no means will it be a situation either where, okay, this is definitely what I'm doing now for the next 20 years. It might be, it might not be. I have no problem doing a few different things at different times. And, like I said, ideally, and the reason why I came home to this organization was to be a part of it for a long, long time. So, I'm hopefully next week the conversations with Adrian go really well.
Do you have any idea how that conversation is going to go from your side?
I hope I know how it's going to go. I think we all have, whenever we go into a situation like that, we all have something in our head how we hope it's going to go, and then at the same time, we all have that little lingering thing in the back of our mind saying, "Wow, I hope it doesn't go that route." And we'll see how it goes. I'm assuming it'll go pretty well, but what happens when you assume.
Can you talk about the growth of the organization over the last 3 years, from where they were, even in August when you signed, to this point now?
Well, like I said, August was a little bit. There was still huge question marks. I mean, yes, we I think about that time there was about 18,000 season tickets sold. So that I think helped a lot of the anxiety where okay, people were going to show up and they were going to show up week in and week out. It wasn't a case where, all right, we've got 6,000 season tickets sold and 25,000 sold for the first game, and now, God, I hope they come back after the first one. I think we figured out pretty early on that there was enough interest that people were going to be around at least for the first season, and kind of the responsibility that we had as players was and coaching staff was to give them a good enough product on the field so that they would want to come back the year after that and the year after that and the year after that. And I think we achieved that pretty well. And I think then having the organization being able to excuse me, to be able to open up more seats, to bring in some huge friendly games, which maybe they've run their course and everyone understands how kind of cool they were, and if they're in the future, they're in the future. But that was another experience that was pretty cool for everybody. And what's gone on at Starfire, having a great training facility, having everything that's going on with the club now is, in my opinion, about as good as I think it can get under MLS rules. I don't know how much bigger we can get. It's not like we have a great, we're not the Yankees. We don't have this unlimited salary cap that we can go out and just become this massive team. And we as much as we want to, we can't become Manchester City and just throw hundreds of $1 million at the team because of the cap system. But, the infrastructure is great. I mean, and it's and I think all the little things that might have been an issue over the last couple of years, it's an organization that listens and fixes, and I think that's a cool thing to have. There's no real arrogance here. There's not a case of, I mean, you all know Adrian, you all know, it's not a case where you're sitting there going, oh, this guy's unapproachable, and if this could help the team, the organization is more than happy to do it within the guidelines that MLS will allow them. Of course, us as players, we would, I'd love to give up my 26E middle seat on Alaskan Airlines down to LA for a nice charter flight here and there. I mean, there's no doubt about that, but it is what it is.
What do you really think about Ray Green?
Well, I think it's worked out pretty well in the city so far. I'm not so sure about that baby blue green thing that Zakawani was wearing the other day, but that's not my decision.
What advice will you have for whoever ends up filling your shoes? I mean, you've been the only goalie this team's known for its history, really.
I think it totally depends on who comes in and who the club signs and where that goes. I think if it's somebody with a lot of experience, it won't be as big of an issue. If it's somebody who's kind of young and up and coming, trying to make a name for himself, then I'll just tell him that, look, he has to play his game. He can't try to play like me or just be humble, be a good guy, and work as hard as you possibly can. He's got a good coach in Tommy, and Tommy will work him hard, and I'm sure the organization is really, looking for the right guy to make that happen. And, time will tell, but like I said, I hope he goes and has as much success as possible.
Can you talk a bit about Tommy, kind of what he's meant to your career over the last few years? I
don't think quite too many people quite understood that Tom and I have been friends since we were kids, and so I trained with Tom before I'd go back to Europe in preseason when I was home in the summer. 10 years ago. I mean, Tommy was at my house for the World Cup in 2006. It's not just a case of, oh, look, I'm training with Tom Dutra. It was, I'm training with an old friend of mine. And I think that also made that transition for myself. I've said so many times how the city caring and the great crowds and a decent training ground and everything made the transition so easy for me, but also coming in and training with somebody who I've known for years and trained with, and I didn't have to either say, hey, what are we doing here? I mean, I've had coaches before where I'm doing things that I'm going, this is not helping me at all, and how you very, I guess, politely try to skew the training to what you think you need. And with Tom, it was never an issue. You know, and but then what I wanted to do for Tom is I didn't want to make it difficult for him. You know, I didn't want to not train hard or make trouble and have the other guys kind of lose that just because we're friends. And so I think we had a great time the last 3 years, and different situations I've been in, only really one time was it kind of a little bit interesting, but for the most part, I deal a lot more with Tom or the goalkeeping coach at whatever club I'm at than I ever have to do with the head coaches or team administrators or stuff like that. And if I have a great relationship with my goalkeeping coach, it sure makes coming into work nice every day. And like I said, when he's been a friend for 25 years, that makes it a little bit easier.
Concerned you might get bored now that you're retired?
That's a possibility. I mean, I'll definitely be supporting Drew watching The Price is Right a little bit more often, and I got some morbid curiosity with the Maury Povich show, which I don't know why, but my wife gives me a lot of hassle about that. But no, I have a funny feeling that things are going to be pretty busy, and I'm looking forward to, like I said, to that next thing, and also, but at the same time, there's definitely things I'm not going to miss. I mean, I'm not going to miss the stress of preparing for a game. I'm not going to miss, that whole night game on a Saturday at 8 o'clock, and that whole day of nothingness and nervous energy before you get out to the field. And I'm not going to miss coming back to the locker room after I just threw one in my own net and having to talk to you guys. I'll tell you that. I'm not going to miss that. But I truly am going to miss, hanging out with the guys and being a part of success. I mean, it's always nice when you come in and winning is great. Everybody loves it, and it makes a huge difference. And, I'm not going to say I'm going to miss, I just love being out there and having people chant my name and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, there is definitely a buzz when you're out in front of a big crowd and you're successful. I'll miss that. But bored, probably at times. But I'm sure my wife will have plenty of jobs around the house for me to do.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. I'll see you soon.
Words are powerful. I'm Ziggy Schmid. Hearing the words retard and retarded makes people with intellectual disabilities and those who love them feel like less valued members of humanity. That's why we're asking you to help spread the word to end the R word. Stop by the Special Olympics booth and Soccer Celebration to pledge your support. It's time to respect and value people with intellectual disabilities. Please join us in eliminating this offensive language in everyday speech. Thank you.